Hey there. Imagine being reborn with only one useless spell, water magic. No fire, no lightning, nothing flashy. Just water. But in the slums, where a 5-year-old girl is fighting to survive, even a single drop can change everything. Watch how she turns the weakest magic and her modern knowledge into a power that shakes an entire world. Her rise begins now. A girl named Frim opens her eyes wide. She's lying on her back, right on the ground. Frim sits up and looks around. The alleyway she is in leads to a busy street. Frim doesn't understand where she is. Suddenly, someone calls her name. She sees a boy in front of her who asks if she is alive. Frim, in turn, calls him Pakis. And then she quickly covers her mouth. Frim has no idea where she knows that name from. At the same time, she somehow knows that the boy is in charge here. Frim asks what happened. Pakis is surprised that the girl has finally learned to speak. He reminds her that he didn't give Aniki any money, for which Aniki beat him up. Frim looks at him blankly. The boy hesitates and admits that she also got beaten up badly. The girl knows nothing about these events, but she remembers what happened earlier. Frim is absolutely certain that she was Japanese. She led a very ordinary life and worked as a researcher. Nothing special ever happened to her, and every day was like the one before. One day, Frim went into a store after work. She wanted to buy a box of chocolates for a business client. The girl was already going down the escalator. Suddenly, something caught her attention. Looking back, she saw a child falling. Without a moment's hesitation, Frim instinctively spread her arms. She managed to catch the child, but she herself fell. The girl hit her head hard. Now Frim thinks she is dead. It would seem that her memories should have disappeared, but she remembers everything. Pakis awkwardly scratches the back of his head, saying that Aniki clearly did not spare his fists while beating the girl. Everything the girl knew before is mixed with the memories of her body, Frim. She knows that the boy's name is Pakis. He tells her it's time to go to work, and the girl obediently gets to her feet. She remembers that this area is controlled by the mafia, and specifically, Dogger is in charge here. The previous owner of Frim's body found Pakis somewhere. However, the boy is not to be trusted. He is a bad person. Frim and Pakis work together. They sell water. The boy calls out to people, offering them fresh water, created by magic, and possessing beneficial health properties. Buyers are indeed gathering. Some praise the drink, noting its unusual taste, while others find the water to be quite ordinary. Some ask for more. The source is Frim, possessing the magic of water. She fills more and more vessels without pause. That is its job. Although Pakis has no sense of proportion. He sells water at triple the price, but makes the girl fill a much larger volume. The guy pays her, of course, but less than he should. For her labor, Frim receives only stale bread, soup, and 2 coins. Although the girl does not know how the money is distributed, she knows one thing for sure. Most of it clearly does not go to her. The earnings definitely go to someone else. Frim sighs, noting the cruelty and injustice of this world. The girl sits on the street in the pouring rain. She wants to say something, but Pakis reminds her of himself, and Frim falls silent. The girl looks sadly at the downpour, and silently wishes she could at least find a roof over her head. She curls up into a ball, right on the wet ground, and prepares to sleep. Frim does not understand whether what is happening is a dream or reality. In any case, she has to fight for her life. She always wakes up shivering from the cold, never gets enough to eat, and the food she does get is always terrible. On top of that, she has to work herself to exhaustion. The level of civilization in this world is very low, and it's better not to even mention the state of the toilets. As far as Frim knows, her parents abandoned her, leaving her homeless and orphaned. Now, she has to live in an antisocial group. The girl has heard that magic is not uncommon in this world and is widespread. However, they say that Frim is almost the only one who can create delicious water. She herself is surprised at how easily she can conjure up liquid. It seems that this ability is highly valued, and that is why Pakis forces the girl to work and uses her for his own purposes. Frim creates a large drop of water above her hands and plays with it. Suddenly, a fist hits her in the face. The girl falls to her knees and obediently agrees with Pakis, who hit her and demands that she stop fooling around. The local boss likes the water that Frim makes. He even gives the girl some pocket money as a reward. However, Pakis's people take it away from her. Everything in this place is rotten to the core. While Pakis beckons customers, Frim sits behind a pair of tall vessels and calls for water. A fountain gushes from her palms. The girl really enjoys this activity. It is her only joy. Pakis, unnoticed by Frim, pulls her arm. He roughly pulls the girl by her hair. She is in pain, but the boy demands that she work faster. A dark-haired guy who witnessed this scene calls out to Pakis and remarks that the boy has gone too far. Pakis just glares at him. Later, Frim finds the body of the guy who stood up for her in an alley. such as the fate of all those who decide to defy Pakis. That alone is enough to make her sick of this life. The girl knows that things cannot go on like this. She needs to run away. Frim decides to try something. The next time Pakis orders her to hurry up, she doesn't respond. The boy turns around and finds the girl lying on the ground. Approaching her, Pakis crouches down and asks what happened and if Frim can walk. The girl weakly complains of stomach pain and explains that she is very hungry. The boy asks if Frim has eaten her portion. She notes that she is growing and needs to eat more. Pakis replies that he understands. And suddenly he hits the girl hard. He yells angrily that Frim should not try to deceive him again. The boy continues to kick the girl, ordering her to do as he says, because he will also have to pay soon. Finally, Pakis stops, breathing heavily. He asks how long Frim plans to be lazy. She gets to her feet, covering her face. Even though her tiny act of protest has failed, the girl has a plan. Several days have passed since the girl woke up in Frim's body. Today, she and Pakis are going to make water for the boss himself. Dogger, the leader of the organization, has already been poisoned once, so the rules for entry are very strict. Frim knows she can't miss this opportunity. At the door, the companions are met by a guy who lets them in. Dogger is sitting in a chair with his feet up on a servant. Recognizing Frim, he says that the water she brought last time was very tasty. She is afraid of her boss, but she reassures herself with the thought that she'll just do her job quickly and leave this place. She thanks Dogger for the praise while another worker drags the servant away. The boss points to a cup and asks Frim to fill it. She hesitates because she sees how dirty and slimy the mug is. After hesitating, the girl timidly asks for clarification. Can I pour water into an unwashed cup? Dogger gets up from his chair. He looms menacingly over the frightened Frim. He reaches out his hand, and the girl squints, preparing for pain. However, the boss picks up the mug and throws it at the servant. In an icy voice, Dogger reminds him that he asked him to wash the cup. The servant nervously asks again. The answer is a strong blow to the jaw. Frim, her hands pressed fearfully to her chest, watches the punishment and listens to the insults Dogger showers on his servant. Finally, the boss orders the worker to clean up immediately, and he rushes to comply. To Frim's horror, she realizes that she is alone with Dogger. He thanks the girl for her attentiveness as he wipes the cup. Frim thinks he shouldn't be doing this himself. Stammering, the girl says, she is very sorry. She is so nervous that her tongue won't obey her. Glancing at her, the boss asks what she is apologizing for. Frim kneels and confesses that she was unable to use the money Dogger gave her. He asks what happened to it. The girl replies that the local boy stole it. Dogger looks at the bruise on Frim's cheek and her scraped knees. He says he understands her. He asks the girl to pour him some water and then come to him. Dogger points Frim to a plate of food and allows her to eat. The girl happily agrees. The boss watches her thoughtfully, propping his cheek with his fist. Since then, Dogger has been calling Frim more often. In addition, the amount of bullying and beatings from Pakis and the other boys has noticeably decreased. When the girl finished, the boss invited her to eat, and she thanked him. Although Dogger still seemed very scared of Frim, her life had improved a little. When she finished with the boss, Pakis watched closely to see how the girl handled the sales. Frim manages to eavesdrop on conversations while she refills water in hotels. From a maid, for example, she learned about a medicinal plant. In this world, by gathering information bit by bit, the girl increases her own value. Once, while Frim is summoning water, Dogger is counting money. The girl watches closely as her boss twirls a coin between his fingers. If she wants to escape, she has to take a risk, no matter how scary it is. Frim hesitates and asks if she can help count the money. He raises his eyebrows in surprise and asks if she even knows how to count. His subordinates are sure that the child is not up to the task, so they advise the girl to stop with the water and fail. Dogger rudely shuts them up. He suggests that Frim give it a try. The boss is the only one in the organization who can count, and he is always very cautious. So if he entrusts the girl with such an important task, it will be telling. Frim freezes in confusion. The pile contains coins of various types, and the girl knows almost nothing about the country she is in. Dogger wonders if she can handle it. Frim stammers and replies that he has gone too far, and she was going to try something on his side. He just advises her not to overdo it and slumps bored in his chair. The girl decides that money is not the most important thing right now. It is more important to prove herself useful to her boss. She sorts the coins under Dogger's watchful gaze. In her past life, the girl studied economics, so she knows her way around money. Even if her knowledge is no longer relevant, she can still understand something. Frim spins the coin, examining it carefully. The girl says she is done. Dogger looks at the table doubtfully and asks what principle Frim used to sort the money. Frim explains that she divided coins of the same type into clean, normal, and dirty, and then divided them into groups of 10. She adds that this will make it easier to count later. The girl notes that she cannot finish everything at once, but hopes that she has been able to be useful to her boss. Dogger starts to speak, but is interrupted by his subordinate, who reports that the child has been useful after all. The boss replies that Kedo shouldn't interrupt people unless he wants to end up unconscious. The subordinate agrees. Dogger asks where Frim learned this method. The girl, nervously twisting the hem of her dress, says she saw a child working in a grocery store doing it. The boss smiles. He announces that from now on, Frim will be helping him. The girl rejoices silently, but asks aloud what she should tell Pakis. Dogger replies that the guy is already at rock bottom, so he'll figure out himself. Frim is glad that she is one step ahead. She is distracted from her thoughts when she notices the boss licking his fingers. The girl calls out to him. She advises him to give up this habit because he's just been handling money, and some of the metals used to make coins can be poisonous. If too much of these substances get into the body, it can cause poisoning. Dogger nervously asks again. Then, after a pause, he reports. He announces that from this day forward, Frim will work for him. She instantly agrees. Of course, she doesn't know if it's a good or bad choice, but it's better than working for Pakis. Soon Frim is already admiring her own room, jumping on the bed. Of course, the bedroom is small, but it's hers. The girl now has clothes, and she won't have to get wet in the rain anymore. Frim sits at the table opposite Dogger. He asks how much she earned for the day. The girl replies gloomily that she was paid 2 copper coins. The boss remarks thoughtfully that the reports indicated a larger amount. Frim believes that the rest went into the pockets of other people. Dogger apologizes for the behavior of his subordinates. The girl asks how she should sell the water now. The boss tells her to stay close to him, and the liquid will be transported directly from here. Frim agrees happily. She is glad that Dogger wants her to stay with him. After all, this way she will become indispensable to him. The girl enthusiastically asks if she can clean up. He replies that she can do whatever she wants. Frim thanks him and jumps up from her seat. The dirt has been bothering her for a long time. The dirty toilet, the small staircase outside, which becomes slippery and dangerous when it rains. Frim wants to take care of everything. To do this, she turns on the water at high pressure. The flow is so strong that it throws the girl to the side, and she crashes into the wall with her back. Frim realizes that it was scary, but if she tries harder, she will be able to do everything better. Dogger enters the room where his subordinates are, wondering where the girl has gone. He puts his hand on someone's shoulder and asks if anyone has seen Frim. Then the boss notices what everyone is watching with such enthusiasm. Frim is skillfully controlling the flow of water. Noticing Dogger, she happily reports that she cleaned the toilet and hallway. The boss pushes people aside and approaches the girl. She proudly announces that everything is much cleaner now. Dogger pats her on the head, praising her for her work. Frim is going to do everything she can. She is not going to just live in danger. The boss suggests going to eat, and the girl enthusiastically agrees. She is ready to do anything to survive. Frim is confident that with her knowledge in water magic, she will succeed no matter what. Dogger reflects that his team has a really strange child. Frim possesses water magic and knows too much for her age, and the boss has never seen hair like this girl's before. Dogger took Frim into his team because he was sure that she was much more than she seemed at first glance. The boss calls out to his subordinate and asks when the girl started working for Pakis. She reminds Dogger that he himself decided that all newcomers would go to the guy. The boss asks again, uncertain, but the woman assures him that Dogger ordered it firmly and clearly, even though he was drunk as a skunk. Pakis was terribly happy then. The boss thoughtfully says that he ended up taking Frim in any way, especially since she would probably have had a worse time with Pakis. In any case, the girl turned out to be a good choice. Here Frim, having warned about herself in advance, enters the room. The girl whispers her greeting because those gathered inside are engaged in lively conversation. One of the subordinates, turning to his boss, remarks that the crowd in the casino is dwindling. Frim frowns, thinking that Mr. Morga will upset the man again. Another employee joins the conversation and explains that it's all because of Lookats, who has opened his own place and is luring customers away. Dogger listens thoughtfully. Then he suddenly asks Frim if she has any ideas. The girl asks again, confused. After receiving confirmation, she tries to come up with something. She has seen similar things in her world and could offer something, but it would be suspicious for a child to give such advice. Frim nervously says aloud that she has never been to a casino. Dogger interrupts her in a thunderous voice, and the girl hastily apologizes. But it turns out that the boss just wants Morga to give Frim a tour of the casino. The girl timidly asks when she is supposed to work. He sternly replies that her job is to follow his orders. He adds that Frim usually comes up with the most interesting ideas, and he needs something fresh. The boss notes that he is counting on her. Morga calls the girl over, and she obediently follows him. Frim wonders what is going on in the casino. She has never been interested in it, and in her world, she never went to such establishments. The girl looks in horror at the man who crashes into the wall with all his might. The crowd roars as they watch the ring, which is fenced off with bars. They cheer on the winner, urging him to kill his opponent. Frim grimaces, realizing that she has literally stumbled onto a battlefield. She sees the next participant being rushed in, pulled by a chain. The girl notices the collars and realizes that these are slaves, who are being forced to kill each other with weapons. Frim is not at all sure that this is legal. Then she remembers the coins they were counting. The girl reproaches herself for not immediately guessing the bloody origin of this. All this money came from the public, who enjoy watching such carnage. Even the food Frim received was paid for with money earned from betting. She feels nauseous. The girl realizes with horror that one mistake, and she too will end up here. She vomited. Morga asks anxiously if everything is all right. Frim apologizes, lying that it's because of the smell. She adds that she'll go take a look around. The girl sees more and more horrors. Frim even finds it difficult to watch the cruelty unfolding before her eyes. She thought she would be helping people with her knowledge and magic. How naive and superficial Frim was. Reality turned out to be much harsher than the girl had imagined. She regrets that she can't do anything, that she can't save the slaves. Right now, Frim cannot help the dying, and she still has to complete the task her boss gave her. She hopes that if she succeeds, she will be able to change something, at least a little. The girl calls out to Morga. She asks him to take her to where the slaves are kept. In the corridor, Frim meets a guy coming out of a room. He greets the girl warmly. She says hi back. She remembers that he's like Pakis's brother named Rad. The guy asks how Pakis is doing. The girl explains that she is working for Dogger today. Rad asks what brought Frim to this place. The girl says that her boss told her to come up with some ideas for the casino because he wants to try something new, so Frim decided to check out the slave market. Rad says that makes sense and asks if she came alone. She explains that she was with Morga, but he fell asleep, and the guy laughs understandingly. He lets Frim pass, since that is Dogger's order, but warns her to be careful. This place is not safe. A girl as small as she is could easily be trampled there. Inside, Frim is greeted by cages. Noticing the visitor, the slaves grab the bars, laughing and wondering what the girl is staring at. Remembering the warning, Frim nervously continues on her way. Some scream and rush at the bars, reaching out their hands to the girl, while others just sit huddled in a corner. Frim looks back, thinking bitterly about why these slaves have to endure all this if they are people just like everyone else. Suddenly, a heavy hand falls on the girl's shoulder, and its owner asks if Frim is lost. She cries out in fear. The stranger rushes to calm her down, promising that he will not harm her. The girl looks at the man's scarred lips. The stranger introduces himself. His name is Logan. He is the chief slave master. He hopes he doesn't scare Frim. The man has no hair and wears a collar around his neck. Hesitating, Frim also gives her name. She quickly asks for a little time, if Logan isn't too busy, of course. The girl adds that she came here on Dogger's orders. Crouching down to be at eye level with Frim, Logan asks if she is alone. She replies that she was with Morga, but he had a bit too much to drink. The man offers Frim a seat, and the girl thanks him. He pulls up a chair for her. Frim doesn't understand why he didn't choose a chair. But then she notices the collar, and she realizes that the man is also a slave. Since the boss sent the girl here, she must be higher in status than Logan. In that case, of course, he is not allowed to sit on the same level as Frim. The girl realizes with horror that Logan cannot be her equal. Tears well up in Frim's eyes, and she begins to cry bitterly. Her companion asks anxiously if everything is all right. The girl apologizes, but cannot stop. The tears keep flowing. Logan asks her to calm down. Frim knows that just by coming to this place, she has already ruined everything for the man, and this realization hurts her deeply. The girl resolutely wipes her eyes with her fists. She can't even cry in front of the slaves. She apologizes again, and she tells Logan that she has a request. Frim begs him to tell her what the casino is all about. The girl quickly leaves the casino, almost running down the corridor. This place seems monstrous to her. The entire room is saturated with cruelty, filth, hunger, and disease. This is how slaves have to live, but now Frim has the opportunity to help them a little. Every moment the girl hesitated, more and more slaves died. Out of breath, Frim stops in front of the office door. She realizes that even Logan, who had been so kind to her, could end up in that terrible ring. The girl cannot simply turn a blind eye to this. She resolutely pulls the handle and throws open the door. Dogger looks up, greets Frim, and asks if she has found inspiration. The girl is sure she can do something, despite her age. She approaches her boss and answers in the affirmative. Frim is ready to save every life she can. The girl resolutely announces that she has an idea. Dogger and Frim watch what is happening in the ring. The girl was given the task of coming up with something new for the casino, but not something stupid. In addition, her idea had to somehow improve the living conditions of the slaves. Only one of Frim's ideas met all the criteria, so she presented it to her boss. Dogger remarks that it's hard to believe that a child came up with it. The game has already made a name for itself. In boxing, slaves fight with their fists. The boss and his subordinates had never heard of such competitions. It was boxing that Frim suggested. The girl modestly replies that she is always happy to help. The goal was to attract people's attention so that they would want to place bets. A combination of casino and competition is perfect for this. To increase interest in the original sport, Frim developed new rules. Dogger notes that the advantage of a new competition is that the slaves will not die immediately. He praises the girl, and she thanks him. Frim suggests that the next task will be cleaning. This will improve the slaves' lives a little. The boss asks again in surprise. The girl explains that it will be better for hygiene, and people will speak well of this place. Dogger thoughtfully acknowledges that Frim's words make sense and allows them to start immediately, since this is not the first time he has heard about cleaning. Then he asks if, in the girl's opinion, the living conditions of the slaves really matter at all. The girl, stammering with excitement, explains that healthy slaves are easier to sell. She adds, watching the slaves clean up can be very entertaining. After a pause, Dogger agrees. He assigns this task to Frim, telling her to do it when she has time. The girl understands that the slaves will still be traumatized. Even though they now fight without weapons, boxing is still dangerous. But Frim is still glad that the slaves' lives have become at least a little bit better. Dogger, already approaching the door, turns around. He tells the girl that if any of the slaves hurt her, she has the right to kill them. Frim immediately refuses, explaining that this would reduce the number of workers. The boss decides not to argue. The girl quietly admits that she is still afraid to watch people die. Dogger asks again, but Frim replies that she didn't say anything. The boss adds that he has something for the girl and asks her to come see him later. Dogger hands Frim a book tied with 2 straps. She asks what it is. The boss replies that it is a reward for Frim. If she wants, she can read or study. He adds that the book seems to be grimoire water magic, but he is not sure if it will be of any use. Dogger was going to sell it, but realized it might be useful to the girl. Frim hugs the book to her chest and thanks the boss. She flips through the pages and notices that the letters are unfamiliar to her, but for some reason, she understands everything. According to her memories, Frim loved to study. However, the girl does not know where exactly the girl studied. Her head is splitting. The boss's subordinates call out to Frim, saying that it's not fair and that they also want something. Dogger intervenes angrily, suggesting that they come up with something useful themselves first. They agree with a sigh. Frim laughs quietly. Soon, the girl is lying on her bed, reading a book. The text contains a lot of details and information about water magic. She immerses herself in reading. But the book is very difficult to understand. Frim doesn't understand much, but she does come to a few conclusions. As she discovers, magic is created with the help of countless ghosts that fly around. People call them, and they respond by using magic. Simply put, a person channels magic through their body, but character and its properties also play a significant role. However, the most important thing is imagination. Frim decides to experiment right away. Stretching out her palms, she summons water and commands it to take shape. The drop splits into several parts and then comes back together. Now the water takes the shape of a pencil. The girl gasps in admiration and picks up the pencil. She runs it across her palm, trying to write. Nothing comes out, but water is still necessary for life. Frim thinks about how to use her new knowledge to her advantage. She decides that she could use something for cleaning right now. The girl summons alkaline electrified water. A large drop appears in front of her. Outwardly, it looks no different from ordinary water. Frim smiles uncertainly, not sure if it worked or not. As she walks, the girl thinks that she can create things from hydrogen and oxygen. She decides to try to conjure up ozone. When nothing seems to happen, Frim realizes that it's not that simple. It seems that saying the name of the chemical formula is not enough. But then a sharp smell reaches her nostrils. She pinches her nose and tries not to breathe. The girl rushes down the corridor. She coughs and catches her breath. Frim, smiling tensely, admits that it was something with something. Then the girl remembers that ozone comes from machines and is used to get rid of odors. However, Frim never imagined that she would one day be able to do something like this with magic. Ozone is used in various ways, but it is quite toxic. The girl realizes that she has just created something dangerous. Putting her hand on her chest, Frim notices with relief that her heart is beating calmly again. Sighing, the girl decides to take a break and have a snack. This will help Frim calm her nerves and relax. A girl enters the room and sits down next to the boss. In the back of the room, Dogger's subordinates are talking about something. The boss asks what's wrong. Frem replies gloomily that she's just a little hungry. Dogger tells her to help herself to whatever she wants. The girl obediently agrees. To her surprise, she notices that she has become surprisingly close to the boss. She calls out to Dogger and tells him that she has learned a new spell. He jumps up from his seat, remarks that she is a quick learner, and asks what the spell is. After a pause, Frem admits that it seems to be poison. He asks again, tense. The girl remembers the story about her boss's departure and decides she should explain herself. She explains that she can eliminate bad smells and purify rooms. But this is due to poisonous gas or a ghost, and therefore the air around becomes unbearable. Frem exclaims that this is magic and asks him to praise her. Dogger obediently agrees. He admits that although he didn't understand anything, the girl is very clever. The girl turns away and smiles. She couldn't mention ozone, so she had to explain everything in a very confusing and strange way. Frem enthusiastically suggests trying this spell sometime. She explains that if the boss remembers what it's like, he'll be able to tell if there's poison in the air. Dogger raises his hand, and the girl grimly decides that she has gone too far. The boss pats Frem on the head, and with a smile, he notes that she is a good subordinate. Stroking the girl's hair, he tells her to keep up the good work. Folding his arms across his chest, Dogger asks Frem if she means that bad smells mean poison. She replies that in a sense, yes. The boss is silent, lost in thought, then suddenly utters one word, cleaning. The girl asks in surprise. Dogger squeezes the armrest with his fingers and reminds her that Frem said to clean up. He jumps up from his chair and announces that from now on, as soon as the casino closes, they will clean up there. The boss chases his subordinates out of the room, sending them to sweep. The girl doesn't understand how this happened, but she is nevertheless pleased. Even though she didn't ask for it, it's a good opportunity. Soon Dogger is standing in the middle of the casino, bossing people around, ordering them to clean everything up again. Frem glances at him tensely. Meanwhile, the subordinates are scrubbing the surfaces with all their might. They don't seem too happy about the order. The boss turns to the girl, clutching the book. She timidly reminds him that all that's left is to clean the places where the slaves live. Dogger assigns this task to Frem herself. The girl asks if she can take Logan with her, because she is small and the slaves simply won't take her seriously. The boss agrees, allowing Frem to do as she pleases. The girl walks down the corridor. She knows that the boss and his team weren't going to sort everything out in one day. Dogger looked very stunned, and Frem wonders how the poison affected him. She quickens her pace. The girl is happy that she's allowed to clean the slaves' rooms as she pleases. Entering the dungeon, Frem bows to Logan, saying she is happy to work with him. He replies tensely that she shouldn't have bowed. The girl asks the man to help her with the slaves. Logan agrees, but explains that the slaves don't know what to do. He adds that Frem should stay alert and pay attention. The girl stands on a box, and the slaves gather around her. Frem announces in a trembling voice that they will send the slaves to wash. Logan asks uncertainly if they are allowed to do that. The girl explains that she's allowed to do whatever she wants, so everything is fine. Frem is ready to begin and approaches the basin. First, she needs to fill the container with water. She turns on the tap and thinks it would be better if the water were warm. The girl wonders if she can change the temperature. Frem is going to try. She commands the warm water to appear, and she happily notes that it worked. The girl is happy, but suddenly feels weak. Frem faints, while Logan calls out to her anxiously. The girl sees the silhouette of a dark-haired boy in front of her. She is shocked to recognize the very child whose rescue cost her life. Frem rushes to him and rejoices that the boy has survived. The child turns abruptly, holding the ball tightly in his hands. He asks sharply why she saved him. Frem reaches out her hand to the child, and suddenly she wakes up. She is lying in bed and realizes that it was all just a dream. Dogger enters the room and notices that the girl has already woken up. Frem laughs awkwardly and says that she seems to have lost consciousness while trying out a new spell. She notes to herself that she feels very awkward waking up in front of her boss. Her heart is pounding. Dogger says that Logan was terribly frightened. He orders the girl to stay in bed, and she obediently agrees. Frem sits up in bed and timidly calls out to her boss. The girl says that she is the only one to blame for what happened and asks him not to punish the slaves. He agrees with slight irritation, but reminds Frem to rest in bed all day. Dogger leaves, and the girl clutches the blanket in her hands. She never thought it would turn out so badly. Frem decides that she will be more careful in the future and will only practice magic in safe places from now on. The girl stretches out her hands and summons a drop. She watches it for a few moments. Frem falls onto the bed. She regrets that she still can't make ice. The girl knows how to heat water, but for some reason, she can't cool it. Frem wonders what the problem is. Maybe she needs to practice more, or maybe she needs to imagine it differently. She wearily puts her palm on her forehead, admitting that she doesn't know the reason. Frim opens her eyes with a sigh. She sits up abruptly in bed, surprised to realize that she has fallen asleep again. The girl decides that it's all because of her extreme fatigue. Suddenly, she notices something on the table. Frim realizes with confusion that her boss left food for her, although she doesn't know the reason for his concern. Sometime later, the girl apologizes profusely to Logan. He waves his hands awkwardly, trying to stop Frim. He asks if she is feeling better. Logan admits that he was very frightened when Frim fainted. The girl hastily assures him that she is fine and offers to continue cleaning. After a moment's hesitation, the man agrees, but asks Frim to be more careful. He crouches down to be at the same level as the girl. Logan says that they're all very grateful to Frim, but something else is bothering them. He gently takes the girl's hand in his and adds that he doesn't know what will happen to the slaves if something happens to Frim. Logan advises the girl to take good care of herself. He notes that if the incident repeats itself, all the slaves will lose their heads in every sense of the word. Frim apologizes again and promises to be more careful. Logan gets up and suggests they get to work. The girl enthusiastically agrees. Soon, the slaves are washing the floors while Frim releases jets of water. Logan timidly asks if the girl is feeling well, as she is using magic nonstop. Frim cheerfully replies that she is not tired because she is creating cold water. This surprises the man, and he asks if the girl has made a contract with a ghost. She says no and notes that for some reason, she is able to create a large amount of water. Slaves wash the walls and wipe the tables. Finally, Frim wipes the sweat from her forehead wearily. She suggests calling a day. Logan is holding a bucket. The girl has only managed to fill one bucket with warm water. She asks to share it with those who have worked hard today. The man smiles and thanks Frim as she leaves. She herself can't wait to take a bath, because she hasn't been able to do so yet. She catches the eye of a slave who is glaring at her. The girl sadly admits that many prisoners look at her as if they wish her dead. Frim meets Dogger, who is carrying a stack of books somewhere. The boss asks how her magic training is going. Sitting down on a chair, she happily replies that everything is fine. Dogger is pleased to hear this and allows her to practice as much as she wants. Frim thanks him and asks if she can do her magic first and then clean up. The boss agrees, and the girl happily leans back in her chair. Frim climbs onto the roof of the building. She notices that hardly anyone ever comes here. The girl looks down. She thinks happily that no one could possibly climb over the fence. Frim lights a fire. She wants to try a spell with oxygen and hydrogen. During her last experiment, she produced ozone, so the girl assumes that she will be able to control other elements, such as water. Oxygen will add fuel to the fire. This should help Frim visualize everything better. To begin with, the girl asks for just a little oxygen to appear. The fire continues to burn, and Frim realizes with confusion that nothing has happened. She thinks the problem is the quantity. In desperation, she tries to summon oxygen and hydrogen, both separately and together. The girl falls to the floor, disappointed that nothing is working. Getting up, she wonders if perhaps the wind is to blame, carrying away most of the gas. Or maybe it's the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen. Frim remembers something similar from her rocket science class. She is afraid to conduct experiments with explosive substances while standing right next to them. The girl decides to try again. But first, she summons water, commanding it to take the form of a shield. Frim creates a rod of water with oxygen inside, a double formation of water. She tries to shape it, but the rod falls apart, turning into a puddle. The girl realizes wearily that everything is much more complicated than it seemed at first glance. However, Frim is confident that everything will work out if she continues to practice. She creates various objects out of water. The girl notices that simple shapes are quite easy to make, but more complex figures are already difficult to achieve. Frim creates a butterfly out of water and watches it fly away. The girl thinks that this is the only thing she can do so far. She tries to catch the butterfly, but fails. Frim happily exclaims that she just caught a creature she created with her own hands. She admits that it was humiliating. The girl decides to get back to work, because she will have to return soon. Of course, it's scary to get close to the substances, but that way everything will definitely work out. Frim thinks that since oxygen escapes into the air, more structure should be added. She commands the oxygen and hydrogen to combine into water and appear. A drop floats in front of her, and Frim thinks everything has worked out. The girl flattens it, giving it the shape of a disc. She throws it. There is an explosion, and Frim looks at what has happened with admiration. The girl gasps and watches as the disc flies down. She decides she needs to go and retrieve it. Frim notices with confusion that for some reason a whole crowd of people has gathered on the street. Among them, she recognizes Lookats, an enemy of the mafia. Morga even drew his portrait for the girl so that she would remember his appearance. Frim doesn't understand what he is doing here. Lookats is surprised to see something fall. Then one of the mafia's subordinates jumps out of the courtyard, thinking they are being attacked. Frim listens in horror. The mafia member recognizes Lookats and angrily asks what he is doing here. He shouts that they have been caught. The girl covers her mouth with her hand. Downstairs, someone is about to be dragged through the mud. Frim realizes in despair that everything is spiraling out of control. She decides it's time to tell the boss everything and jumps to her feet. The girl runs down the hallway as fast as she can and calls out to Dogger. She tells him there's a fight outside, and he calmly replies that he knows. He orders Frim to hide somewhere. The subordinates note that the rats should stay where they are and play, and promise to return soon. The girl obediently hides behind the boxes. She thinks it's good that she warned the boss and his employees. However, Frim has no idea what will happen if they find out about the girl's ability to blow things up, and realize that she's not just a pet. Most likely, Frim will be used as a weapon. Soon, Dogger's satisfied men burst into the room, announcing that they have taught Lookats a lesson he will not soon forget. Frim leaves her hiding place, praises them, and hands them a cup of water. They thank her. One brags about the number of people he defeated, another says he knocked out more people. They immediately start arguing about it. The boss, meanwhile, asks Frim if she is okay. She replies in a trembling voice that everything is fine. Dogger wonders if something happened while the girl was practicing magic. She feigns confusion and asks again. The boss stops mid-sentence and asks her to forget about it. Frim wonders if Dogger noticed anything. She decides she is lucky that the boss did not press her. The girl imagines what would happen if he found out. Dogger would force her to kill people if he found out what she could do with magic. Frim is sure that this is how it will be. She decides it's best to keep quiet about it. The girl rushes out of the room, announcing that she is leaving. Frim closes the door, and Dogger watches her go. A wicked grin appears on his face. The girl gets down to cleaning in earnest. At this rate, the slaves and Frim will soon finish their work. Logan informs the girl of this. Frim thanks him, gratefully noting that he is always ready to come to the rescue. He asks her not to exaggerate. He adds that they are former soldiers, so physical help is the only thing they can offer. Frim argues passionately, saying she couldn't have done it without Logan. She expresses her hope that he will continue to help her in the future. As he leaves, Logan asks Frim to take care of herself. The girl thinks Logan is very kind. She can even imagine him relaxing in a cafe and drinking coffee, with a white dog sitting at his feet. Frim hopes that everything will be fine with Logan. The girl decides that the cleaning in the dungeon is finished. Now she's going to return to her boss and do the accounting. Dogger calls out to Frim and tells her that he is going to introduce her to a nobleman. The girl turns to her boss, frozen with a coin in her hand. She asks again, confused. The boss says he knows this man, so Frim can be herself. There's a knock at the door. Dogger notices that the nobleman has returned and invites him in. From the doorway, he says that the boss has cleaned up nicely. Dogger adds that the casino has also gained popularity recently. He calls out to Frim, asking what she is doing. She is kneeling with her forehead pressed to the floor. She explains that she is not allowed to look at nobles without permission. The boss lifts the girl up by her waist, causing Frim to gasp, and asks her to stop worrying. He adds that although the visitor may look scary, he is kind at heart. Frim sees a perfect copy of Dogger. The stranger smiles at the girl. Frim calls out in amazement to her boss, who is holding her at eye level with the nobleman. The stranger laughs heartily, asking if Dogger really didn't tell the girl anything. She frowns in confusion. After laughing, the nobleman introduces himself. His name is Varsal Drajan. He adds that he is Dogger's brother, as Frim has probably already noticed. The girl realizes that the boss and the nobleman are identical twins. Frim, in turn, introduces herself, saying embarrassedly that the brothers really do look very similar. Varsal smiles cheerfully and agrees. He tells the girl that when she last helped with the money, it was him with her, not Dogger. Frim is sure he is lying, and he laughs and admits that he is. He laughs until he cries and adds that the girl is simply gorgeous. Dogger smirks and remarks that it's rude, but he has nothing to say in response. The boss puts Frim down on the floor and kneels down to be at the same level as the girl. Dogger asks Frim if she wants to work with his brother. The girl asks again in surprise. Soon all three are sitting at the table. The brothers sit opposite each other, and Frim sits at the head. Dogger explains the girl's tasks to her. She will have to clean the statues belonging to the Drajan family. He adds that a regular brush has no effect, so the boss decided that Frim's magic could come in handy. The girl thinks to herself that it's easier said than done. She suspects that if she breaks anything, they will simply kill her. Frim raises her hand and timidly asks if she can ask an honest question. Varsal smiles and allows it. The girl begins by explaining that it is difficult to clean the dirt in the room because it will stain everything around it. In addition, the statues could break, depending on their strength. She adds that in this case, Frim will not be to blame. Varsal agrees with everything. He cheerfully says that he understands everything and tells the girl that she can get to work. Frim turns away so that Varsal cannot see her unhappy face and promises to do everything in her power. A bottle appears on the table. Its contents are poured into mugs. Dogger explains that Varsal is a nobleman who looks after the area. Although he does not own any land, he is still a big fish in a small pond. Frim decides that Varsal must be the mayor. The boss explains that the birth of twins is considered a bad omen, so he was excluded from the family. However, the brothers have maintained a warm relationship, even though Varsal is the one who runs the town. Frim remarks that this is impressive, and Dogger agrees. She innocently asks why the boss was expelled, since Dogger and Varsal are twins, and therefore there is no difference between them. The boss's expression changes, and he asks if the girl dares to repeat her words. Frim realizes with horror that she has gone too far. She lowers her eyes and hastily apologizes. Dogger waves it off, advising her not to worry about it, and takes a sip from his mug. He explains that Varsal possesses earth magic. For example, the building they are in was built from bricks he created, as were most of the houses in this city. Dogger adds grimly that he does not have such abilities. Frim responds passionately that the boss has many good qualities. He does not argue and says that he was lucky to learn the art of magic, so he can always become stronger. Thanks to this teaching, Dogger can also rake in big money. In addition, he has subordinates. He pours the contents of Frim's bottle, saying that he can't shortchange her, especially since the drink is a gift for Varsal. The girl thanks him enthusiastically. To herself, she thinks that this is wrong because she is still a child. Frim takes a sip and immediately starts coughing. Dogger asks anxiously if she is okay. The girl is already sniffling. The boss asks again if Frim is feeling well. The girl replies that everything is spinning before her eyes. Dogger picks Frim up, apologizing for what happened. He tells someone that before they leave, they need to take care of the girl. The boss adds that he cannot let Frim go alone, so either Logan or Almaroy will accompany her. Dogger hands the girl over to the former. Frim recognizes the slave who looked at her so unkindly in the dungeon. He glares at the girl again. The slave, who takes part in battles, looks as if he is half human and half lizard. Someone else approaches. Dogger announces that Pakis will also go with Frim. The girl looks anxiously at her former boss. Dogger orders Pakis to obey Frim in everything. The girl notes that the boy looks beside himself. Logan timidly asks permission to ask his boss something. The boss asks what's the matter. The slave timidly reminds him that some places are only accessible to women. He suggests taking one of the women with them, since they cannot accompany Frim. Dogger praises Logan for his prudence. He says to take a couple of girls with them. Logan carries Frim in his arms. Pakis walks past her and whispers that she shouldn't get cocky. He advises her to go kill herself. The girl looks anxiously over Logan's shoulder as Pakis walks away. She doesn't understand what's wrong with the boy. Logan pulls her out of her thoughts. He says that among the slaves for battle, there is Makia. Although she is somewhat cruel, she is excellent at her job. Frim instantly agrees and asks who else they will take. Logan thinks and turns to Almaroy. He asks if he can suggest anyone. A contemptuous expression remains on the boy's face, but he still names one person, Tallarine. Almaroy adds that she is his younger sister. He explains indifferently that if she hasn't been sold, she's still in the building. Frim smiles tensely, thinking that the boy is talking as if everything is normal. Soon, the companions go to meet the girls. Makia introduces herself with a broad smile. Behind her stands Tallarine, timidly saying that she is happy to meet everyone. Then she notices Almaroy and her expression changes completely. Beaming, the girl calls out to her brother. He just glances at her sullenly, not deigning to answer Tallarine. Logan intervenes in the conversation, explaining to the girl that there is work for her. Tallarine sadly agrees. Frim watches the upset girl walk away. At the mansion, the group is greeted by a statue of Varsal. The owner of the house cheerfully comes out to greet the visitors. Frim says he would be happy to work with him. Then Varsal notices Pakis and greets him with a smile, ruffling his hair. Pakis frowns in displeasure. Frim notices how many statues there are on the site. Varsal explains that they represent all the nobles in the country. He adds that there are about 60 sculptures. The girl notes that the statues are very dirty, and the stone looks very fragile. She asks if she will be okay if the sculptures suddenly break. Varsal promises that there will be no problems. He adds that the statues are in this condition after an unsuccessful attempt to wash them, so all hope rests on Frim and her magic. Laughing, Varsal says that destroying all the sculptures would be too much, but if she wants to, it's better to start with the one he's pointing to. The girl thinks that some of them can be destroyed. Frim asks Varsal to step aside a little, as she plans to start spraying. He obediently moves away. The girl summons her magic, and Varsal cries out in admiration. Frim turns to him, and the man instantly falls silent. She gives Varsal a murderous look, and the nobleman says that he already understands everything and that she can stop glaring at him. He promises to watch from the sidelines and not interfere. Varsal walks away disappointed. He wanted to see everything up close. Frim turns to her companions. She suggests they start assigning tasks. Her companions look at her silently, and the girl asks if everything is okay. Tallarine gently says that Frim is simply amazing for her age. She adds that the girl doesn't hesitate when she gets down to work. Frim replies shyly that she just has experience. She returns to assigning tasks. The girl asks Logan to stay and help her, and sends the others to clean up the surroundings. Pacus cries out in annoyance. He remarks mockingly that Frim has raised her status, and now the boy is her subordinate. Pacus brings his face close to the girl's and angrily asks what kind of nonsense this is. Frim realizes that he has reached his limit. She calmly replies that it was the boss who assigned him the task. Pacus yells that he doesn't care. He swings his fist, demanding that the girl remember her place once and for all. Frim covers herself with her hands, but the blow never comes. Logan, Makia, and Almaroy hold Pacus back, some by his arms, others by his clothes. Tallarine covers her mouth with her hand in horror. Pacus turns to his companions in confusion. Logan explains that he has been ordered to protect Frim. The boy demands to be released immediately. He tries to break free from the man's grip. Pacus curses everyone around him, calling them useless trash. Logan asks Frim for permission to calm the boy down. Makia gives the girl an encouraging hug around the shoulders. Frim reluctantly agrees and asks not to kill Pacus. He continues to slander his companions. He promises to kill the girl. Makia crouches down and asks if Frim is okay. She has tears in her eyes. She knows that what happened was not just bad, but truly terrible. Makia holds Pacus by the shoulders as he sits. Logan stands next to them, and Frim watches from the sidelines. Although everyone has calmed down, but the girl realizes that the jokes are over, and now it's serious. Makia throws the boy over her shoulder. Frim asks her and Logan to explain everything to Dogger. She herself will not go with them, because she needs to stay here. The man says to leave it to them, and Makia exhales irritably, wondering what kind of job this is. The girl turns to her brother and sister standing nearby. She thanks them for their help and accidentally mispronounces Almaroy's name. He remarks that they didn't do anything special and corrects Frim. She gasps in embarrassment. She apologizes, admitting that she did not remember his name. The girl offers to return to work with a shy smile. Almaroy and Tallarine leave with their mops at the ready, while Frim begins to wash the pedestal. The girl feels the servants' eyes on her back. They have been watching them work for a long time. Frim realizes that, for them, it's like watching a cleaning video for people in her world. The girl cups her hands around her mouth and calls out to her brother and sister. She suggests they take a break. Frim fills their mugs with water. Tallarine thanks her and takes a sip. The girl freezes in shock, then marvels at the taste. She advises Almaroy to try it too. He looks at the cup doubtfully, but takes a small sip anyway. To Tallarine's surprise, he simply says that it tastes good. Frim watches the conversation between her brother and sister. She decides that they definitely have something to talk about. The girl announces that she is going to the bathroom for a moment. Tallarine immediately replies that she will go with her. Frim hurriedly says that they can't leave, so it's better for them to stay where they are, and she'll try to come back as soon as possible. Gradually walking away, the girl looks back. The brother and sister are enjoying their conversation. A smile even appears on Almaroy's face, and Tallarine laughs. Frim herself is happy. It is getting dark, and lights come on in the windows of the mansion. Varsal sinks into the bathtub with pleasure, enjoying the water. Frim watches him gloomily. She doesn't like watching Varsal splash around and wash himself. She turns away in irritation. Frim, of course, doesn't mind creating a little hot water, but she doesn't like the fact that the nobleman considers her some kind of boiler. Varsal notes that her water is filled with mana. Frim thanks him for his kind words. The nobleman asks how the work is progressing. The girl bows and replies that although they had a small problem, everything is fine now. She adds that they have already cleaned 12 statues. Varsal notes that her magic is impressive. He recalls hearing something about an argument with Pacus. Frim smiles irritably. She explains that she used to be the boy's subordinate, but now that the girl has risen in status, Pacus can't stand it. Varsal casually replies that there's nothing to be done about it. He asks Frim not to blame herself, because Dogger is the only one to blame for everything from the very beginning. The girl asks what he means. Varsal explains that his brother did not take into account Pacus's current age. Frim frowns. The nobleman changes the subject and asks her to pour him some more water. The girl obediently agrees. Meanwhile, Pakis is curled up in the middle of the room. He looks sadly at the floor. The boy still remembers the words of his father, Dogger. He asked doubtfully if Pakis was really his child. That day, the boy's mother and father were drunk. He was just a mistake made during a party. His mother always insisted that Pakis would be better off without a father, and the boy agreed. But one day, his mother started coughing. At the time, it seemed like a common cold. Pakis asked if everything would be okay. His mother assured him that she just needed to rest, and she would be fine. The boy advised her not to overdo it. His mother never recovered. Then there was a quarrel in his father's office. Pakis asked for help, because he was his son after all, but Dogger just sat there with his arms crossed, ignoring his pleas. He said that Pakis' mother herself had said she had no money. The boy wanted to say something, but his father didn't give him the chance. Dogger said that if Pakis needed money, he had to earn it himself. The boy said nothing more to him. Pakis ran out into the street and rushed home in the pouring rain. He cursed his father desperately, hoping he would die. Gasping for breath, Pakis leaned against the front door. Finally, he entered the dark house. His mother was lying on the bed, fast asleep. The boy looked at her for a few moments and clenched his fists resolutely. Pakis' brothers taught him all the tricks of the trade so that the boy could earn his own money. Now he knew how to make money, how to poison his rivals, fight, and extort money. Pakis even learned how to kill. After some time, the boy acquired a subordinate, a little girl who was brought to him. She was clumsy, quiet, and hardly spoke. To be honest, the girl was more of a burden to Pakis. Nevertheless, he taught her as he had been taught. Then Pakis was shocked by the news. He was told that Frim was now working directly for Dogger. His informant had noticed that the boss liked this girl. Pakis cursed desperately. When he got home, the boy visited his mother. She was lying in bed and gently asked her son for forgiveness. He smiled and replied that everything was fine and told her to rest peacefully. Pakis sat down on a chair next to the bed. His mother asked him if he was having any problems at work. The boy said that he had been given a ward, but she was slow and useless. His mother replied that this was normal and asked him to be kinder to the girl. Pakis did not argue. His mother quietly asked if Dogger was treating him well. Pakis clenched the edge of the blanket so tightly that his knuckles turned white. However, he kept a smile on his face and replied that everything was fine. Pakis's life took a turn for the worse. No matter what the boy tried, nothing worked out for him. After the beating, he wiped his face and clenched his teeth. Everything went wrong when Frim left. He was sure that it was worth subduing her and teaching her a lesson. So Pakis decided to threaten the girl with a knife, putting her in her place. Dogger leaned over the boy lying on the floor. He said that Frim was useful to him and asked why Pakis had tried to kill her. The boy spat in his face, saying that he was a terrible father. In response to his insolence, he was slapped. While Pakis was clearing his throat, Dogger said he was sure Frim and the boy would make up, but it turned out the way it did. He added that Pakis had gone too far, and it was time to learn a lesson. Dogger locked his son behind bars. The boy lay exhausted on the floor. He was sure that now he was definitely finished. Frim walks down the hallway of a luxurious mansion, accompanied by Talarine and Almaroy. The girl wonders when Logan and Makia will return. Frim thought they would just take Pakis away and come back in a moment. She's afraid that the boy lied and his companions were punished instead of him. The girl clutches her head in horror, cursing herself for not thinking of this right away. Around the corner, Frim notices Makia and Logan talking intently about something. The girl rushes towards them, happy that they have returned safe and sound. However, they greet her with silence and frowns. Frim asks in confusion, "What's wrong?" Makia scratches the back of his head, while Logan instantly breaks into a smile and hastily replies that everything is fine. He apologizes for worrying Frim so much. The girl realizes that the slaves simply don't know how to respond to concern because no one used to care about them. She explains that she was very worried because Logan and Makia had been gone for so long. Frim asks her to tell her everything in detail as they walk into the room. The girl opens the bedroom door and asks her companions to sit down on a chair. A giggle comes from under the blanket. Someone remarks that Frim is very kind to the slaves. The girl turns around in alarm, realizing that someone is in the bed. The blanket is thrown back, and a young man sits up in bed, cheerfully greeting the newcomers. Frim recognizes Pakis' brother, remembering that they talked at the entrance to the arena. He says he just wanted to surprise the girl and adds that he came here with Pakis. Frim, addressing the guy respectfully, remarks that they haven't seen each other in a long time. Now the girl remembers that she often saw him talking to Pakis. Frim is surprised that they get along. The guy smiles and says she can just call him by his name. He adds that it will be useful for her work. The girl's expression changes. She realizes with horror that she doesn't remember the boy's name. Hesitating, Frim honestly admits that she has forgotten his name because Pakis always just called him brother. The boy laughs and says he's just joking. He says his name is Mulad, but the girl can just call him Yud. The boy decides to get down to business. With a sly smile, he asks Frim to explain why Pakis was so angry. The girl looks at Myud in fear. She stammers, not knowing what to say. She is afraid that she is in trouble. She really doesn't like the smirk on the guy's face. Frim doesn't seem to sense any danger from Myud. However, if she answers incorrectly, she will likely get into trouble. She explains that Pakis was her boss. And, smiling nervously, she suggests that the boy doesn't like the fact that he will now be her subordinate. Myud's expression becomes friendly again. He says he understands everything and remarks that the girl is very lucky. Frim wonders to herself, noticing that Myud doesn't seem angry about the argument with Pakis. The girl apologizes to the boy for disturbing him. Myud turns away and waves his hand. He replies that everything is fine, especially since it was Pakis who was at fault. Myud says it's late and advises Frim to go to bed. The girl stammers and agrees. Frim turns around and is surprised to see her companions. Makia is lying on the floor, Logan is leaning against the fireplace, and the brother and sister are standing, looking at them. The girl calls out to her subordinates and suggests that they go to bed. Logan replies that sleeping in the same conditions as Myud is disrespectful. Frim notes that the people from a mansion have provided this room for their use. If they do not use it for its intended purpose, they will offend their hosts. She asks Myud if this is really okay. He looks surprised. He replies that he allows them to sleep in the beds. The girl happily thanks him. The candle is extinguished. Frim and Myud lie in adjacent beds. The boy notices that the girl is indeed very kind to the slaves. Frim pulls the blanket up to her neck and replies that she is their boss. She adds that these slaves belong to the boss, and therefore the girl is obliged to take care of them. Frim turns her head toward Myud. She says that even though they are slaves, they are still people. After a pause, the boy replies that he understands her and turns his back on the girl. They wish each other good night. The next day, Makia holds Frim so that she can reach the statue's head with a stream of water. They have been in Varsal's mansion for several days now. Frim does some quick calculations in her head and realizes that at this rate, they will finish cleaning tomorrow. All this time, Myud has been actively helping the group with the cleaning, so the girl has begun to think that he is not so bad after all. However, Frim interrupts her thoughts, reminding herself how people in this world think. Varsal approaches the girl and her companions. He informs them that the remaining sculptures do not need to be cleaned. Frim asks in surprise. The nobleman explains irritably that the statues belong to a family of stone magicians with whom his house does not get along. Varsal adds that they don't even need to start cleaning these sculptures. He won't be upset in the slightest if they happen to break. Frim thinks this is very petty. Folding his arms, the nobleman admits that each sculpture is popular among noble people, so he himself cannot break these statues. This circumstance annoys him greatly. Frim remarks admiringly that all these people immortalized in sculpture were the founders of the nation. Varsal replies that this is indeed the case and adds that every detail, such as clothing, has a specific meaning, and the statues themselves represent specific domains. Seeing Frim's surprised look, Varsal smiles and says that this world is full of meaning, just like the fact that a girl can use so much magic. He adds that Frim may have noble blood running through her veins. The girl replies that she is a child of the streets because she was abandoned when she was very young. She curses herself for her words. Frim doesn't understand why she thought that. Then a heavy hand ruffles her hair until the girl's head starts to spin. Varsal notices that Frim has also had a hard time. The girl freezes in shock. The nobleman explains that he and Dogger were on bad terms with their father. Varsal adds that he was the heir, while his brother was simply kicked out of the family. Frim thinks that all people are burdened with something. In this sense, worlds are no different. Varsal shows Frim the statues and explains that they depict water mages. He advises the girl to remember this and stick to it in the future. Frim feels like she has seen them somewhere before. Sometime later, Varsal cheerfully calls out to someone and orders him to twist the knife without mercy when he wounds an enemy. The man stutters and agrees. The nobleman gathers Frim and her entire group in the dining room. He announces that he has prepared a feast for them and allows them to eat as much as they want. The girl asks if she is sure. Varsal explains that since Frim and her companions will finish cleaning tomorrow, he wants to feed them properly. Until now, the nobleman had not had time to do so and decided to make amends by being more hospitable. The girl sincerely thanks the owner of the mansion. She invites her group to start eating. Her companions enjoy every bite. Then Varsal asks Frim to fill his water supply. The nobleman liked the taste so much that he can't believe he won't be able to enjoy this drink anymore. The girl is ready and asks if she should bring a cup. Varsal orders the vessels to be brought in. Frim fills another container. The nobleman enjoys the taste of the water and serves another glass. The girl feels like a gas station attendant filling up cars' tanks. Varsal is sure that there is mana in the water because it has a very special taste. He wonders if Frim really could have been born in some mansion. The girl feels uncomfortable working under such a watchful gaze. Varsal looks around at the results of the cleaning with admiring cries. Everything is sparkling and shining, the statues and the staircase. He concludes that it turned out very well indeed. The nobleman adds that he did not think that Frim and her companions would be able to clean the entire mansion. Varsal hands over the box, announcing that it is a reward. Mizu, kneeling, thanks the nobleman and accepts the box. The girl does not understand why the boy is taking the box. She decides that since Mizu is the boss here, everything must be fine. Then Varsal calls out to Frim and hands her a book. He explains that it is a water grimoire that the nobleman found while cleaning. Varsal found a copy, so the girl can safely take one of the copies. Frim warmly thanks the nobleman as she accepts the grimoire. The nobleman instructs her to polish her skills. He adds that no matter how sharp or dull a sword is, rust will ruin any of them. The girl wonders if everything in this world is expressed so strangely. Frim promises aloud to try her best. She thanks Varsal for his hospitality. She bows to the nobleman. Mizu notes that it's time to return to the casino, and the girl agrees. Varsal waves goodbye to them. Mizu turns into a dark alley. Frim looks around anxiously. She's not at all sure that they took this route to the mansion. Suddenly, Mizu stops and asks if he can take the grimoire. The girl, though puzzled, agrees and hands the book to the guy. He stuffs it into a bag under Frim's confused gaze. Mizu apologizes and advises the girl to blame it all on bad luck. He turns around abruptly. The usual smile disappears from Mizu's face, and he points a sharp dagger at Frim. He orders her not to tell anyone about what happened. The girl realizes with horror that she has been outsmarted and that they want to take all her money. She scolds herself for losing her grip. With a tense smile, Frim replies that she can't promise anything, because she'll have to tell Dogger if he asks her anything. Mizu agrees and promises to sort everything out later, but for now, the girl will do as he says. Then Makia appears in front of Frim. She shields the girl and asks Mizu what is going on. He smiles unpleasantly. He orders her not to move or say anything. Makia shudders. Frim watches him tensely. Mizu informs her that if Makia takes another step, she will remain here forever. He again orders her to be silent. Makia lunges at the guy, but suddenly stops abruptly. Gasping, she reaches for her throat. The woman suddenly collapses to the ground. Frim squeals and reaches fearfully toward Makia. Mizu coldly remarks that it's useless. Behind the guy stands Logan with darkened eyes. Frim looks on in confusion as the slave leans over Makia. He throws the woman over his shoulder. The girl sees that Logan is capable of moving, but is obeying orders. She sadly realizes that this means the slave is working with Mizu. Frim stares blankly at the floor as Logan disappears around the corner with Makia. Mizu approaches the girl and apologizes. He orders Frim to stay away. The guy allows Logan to knock the girl out if she dares to scream. He adds that no one will come to Frim's rescue anyway. Mizu drives the girl into a room. The guy says goodbye and closes the door. Frim retreats to the wall. A door slams in the distance. The girl sinks to her knees. She wraps her arms around her head. She doesn't understand what's going on. Suddenly, Logan approaches her. Frim squeals in fear and tries to crawl away from him. Pressed against the wall, the girl trembles with fear and puts her hands to her chest. Logan looks at her sadly. He sits down cross-legged on the floor opposite Frim. The girl looks back at him. Then someone's hand rests on Frim's forearm. She turns her head and sees Tallarine. Frim hugs her knees. She doesn't understand what's going on here at all. Why did Mizu take her reward? Did Logan know about all this? And why were the girl and her companions locked in this room? Frim just sits there, admitting that she knows nothing. Logan presses his hands heavily against the floor. The girl opens her eyes wide and looks intently at the man. With a trembling voice, she says she doesn't understand what is happening. Frim begs Logan to explain what is going on. He trembles. The girl asks him to say something. She adds that it's an order. Logan just points to his mouth. Frim realizes that the slave cannot speak. She notices that the man does not look hostile at all. The girl decides to test something and timidly begins. Frim asks if Logan will hurt her if she tries to leave the room. He shakes his head, and the girl understands that this is a negative answer. Frim asks in a tense voice if Logan is here to kill her. The slave again answers in the negative. The girl notices to herself that both Mizu and Logan look the same and wonders if there's a reason for this. Frim approaches Almaroy and Tallarine, who are standing apart. She tells them that Logan is unlikely to attack them. Frim adds that since they cannot escape, they might as well take a break for now. They frown and glare at the girl. Frim sits with her arms around her knees, her back pressed against the wall. She looks sadly into the distance. The girl wonders if half a day has already passed. Suddenly, there is a knock, and Frim opens her eyes wide. The door handle clicks. The girl looks up. The door swings open. A gloomy dogger stands in the doorway. Frim calls out to him in surprise. The boss informs her that the little rascals have been up to no good. He orders them to come out. Frim, not understanding anything, gets up and leaves the room. Outside, the girl sees Pakis and Mizu looking gloomy, the latter with a bruise on his cheek. The former looks at Frim from under his eyebrows. Mizu apologizes to the girl. Dogger silently looks at her, his arms crossed over his chest. Frim asks in confusion what all this means. The girl is told the story from the beginning. It was all done for Riki's, Pakis' mother. Mizu, who was close to the boy, also respected his mother. Everything changed when Riki's fell seriously ill and money was urgently needed for her treatment. After Pakis and Frim quarreled, Mizu caught the boy trying to steal from his boss. Riki's was in critical condition, and the money was needed urgently. Mizu found himself in a hopeless situation. Then he decided to spend the reward he had received from Varsal on medicine. The boy took the grimoire with him just in case the money wasn't enough. In the end, Mizu managed to buy the medicine, but Dogger discovered it. Logan apologizes to Frim. She asks why he joined the boys in the first place. Mizu answers her. He explains that the girl would definitely have been killed since Pakis was involved. Logan was well aware of the relationship between the boy and Frim. Mizu decided to deal with everything himself before the situation got worse. Then Logan came to his aid. He explains that the slave did everything for Frim. Logan sadly lowers his head. Mizu urges Pakis to apologize as well. He adds that trying to stab the girl with a knife is beyond the pale. Moreover, it was only thanks to Frim that they found the money for medicine. Pakis looks away and mumbles an apology. The girl, smiling tensely, asks him not to rush at her with a knife again. He clicks his tongue and turns away. Frim frowns, unsure whether the boy feels even a hint of remorse. Dogger also apologizes and promises to buy the girl anything she wants. Frim thinks for a moment, then beams and replies that she wants the staff she read about. The boss remarks irritably that it will cost him a lot. Frim had no idea that the staff was so expensive. Dogger sighs heavily, but agrees. After all, the main thing is that it benefits the girl. He adds that there is something else. The boss hands Frim a bag. The girl takes it, opens it, and finds that it is filled with coins. Dogger explains that Frim has done a great job. The bets are going well. This is extra money that the girl can keep for herself. Frim thinks that these coins were meant for Mrs. Riki's. It seems that word of the girl's cleaning skills has spread throughout the city. She has already cleaned the brothel and auction house run by Dogger. Every day, from morning till night, Frim was busy with work. The boss asked Varsal for help in getting the staff. However, Varsal couldn't help right away because he was busy with some ceremony, which takes up a lot of his time. Because of this celebration, many people have flocked to the royal capital, and Dogger's gang is living the high life. Frim sits gloomily on the bed. There's a mountain of clothes piled up on the floor. The girl gloomily remarks that she simply cannot sleep because of the terrible stench. All these things were sent as a thank you for cleaning. Frim doesn't understand why. She doesn't want to wear old clothes at all, and it seems that wearing worn-out items of clothing is not yet considered normal. On top of that, all the clothes are saturated with a terrible smell of perfume. The girl's nose is already falling off from this scent. Frim, her eyes glazed over from lack of sleep, raises her hand and opens the door. Soon, the girl enters the room where Dogger and his subordinates are sitting. The boss turns to the newcomer and asks what happened. Noticing her appearance, he asks if Frim is okay. One of his employees says that the girl looks like she is about to faint and her eyes are strange, as if empty. Frim stops and says she has some work-related suggestions she would like to discuss. Puzzled, Dogger agrees. The girl's eyes widen and she almost shouts. Her first thought is about the coins, or rather, counting them. There's too much money, the quality is simply disgusting, and it is clearly not worth using. Frim suggests putting it in a broken bottle and measuring its approximate weight, as this will be much easier. The boss's subordinates listen to her with their mouths open. The girl doesn't stop there. Her next suggestion is to introduce a form for the casino. It is also worth coming up with more different games of chance. Frim suggests holding races between small animals. Such a competition will attract more female visitors, improve the atmosphere, and also raise the status of the casino. Dogger listens attentively to the girl, scratching his chin. Then Frim bangs his fist on the table with all his might. She is about to move on to her last and most important suggestion. The girl thinks they could open their own dry cleaning business. That way, they can make the most of the slaves who are now out of work. Frim imagines how the business would work. She thanks her listeners for their attention. The girl turns to her silent subordinates and Dogger himself. They stare at her with wide eyes. Frim sternly informs them in the same tone that they will discuss the details tomorrow. She asks to be allowed to spend the night in the room. The boss hesitates, but agrees, warning her that it might be a little noisy in the room. The girl replies that she doesn't care and heads decisively toward the sofa. After settling down and covering herself with a blanket, Frim wishes Dogger a good night. The boss nervously agrees. He orders his subordinates to be quiet, and they nod in unison. Frim opens her eyes with a heavy sigh. She sits down on the sofa and, looking around in confusion, asks why she slept here and what happened in general. Dogger and his subordinates silently turn to her. The boss replies that everything is fine, that the girl is probably just very tired. Frim apologizes sheepishly and says that she thinks she has done something wrong. Dogger approaches the sofa and calmly remarks that children need to eat and sleep well in order to grow. He suggests that the girl have breakfast first and then tell him about her suggestions for improvement. Frim repeats the word suggestions syllable by syllable, puzzled. He nods and asks her to explain everything in as much detail as possible. Dogger looks questioningly at the girl. Frim wonders in horror what she could have said before going to bed. To be continued. Thanks for watching. Write your feedback in the comments. If you like the story, please like and subscribe. See you soon.